Bombshell Brunches, where your hosts Raquelle Rudenberg and Kristina Lau sip and spill with badass babes every Tuesday morning. All right. Well, it's the end of the day, and This is Tuesday, and we have recorded 3 other podcast episodes, which we're very excited about.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
And it's coming up on a month. Since we launched.
It's a doozy.
How are you?
How are you?
This is what happens when there are no other guests. How's it going?
And the wine starts flowing.
That's right.
Well, I ran out and I grabbed myself a glass of wine for this last one. So if that says anything, no, I'm just kidding.
Cheers.
I'm good now. I have a lot of work to catch up on, but I'm doing good.
You didn't cheers me. Cheers me.
Oh, I missed it. I'm sorry. The week before and last week were ballistic up until probably Monday was absolutely nuts. And then Sunday, I just kind of dropped off the grid and took my dogs for like a 3-hour walk and did stuff with John. I really should have been studying, but I needed a day. I had a bubble bath.
I left you like on your own to deal with a bunch of stuff. I went away to a spa with.
I was so jealous. I was like, come on.
I'm sorry.
Bring me.
Put
me
it's
in
funny.
Your luggage.
We'd planned it for April, and obviously pandemic happened, and I really got to a point where I realized that I have to take that time. And I just love how respectful you were of that. I think, so many of these bombshell brunches, the physical brunches that we used to have, were really about supporting each other's choices as much as they were about giving information and supporting people kind of in a more direct fashion. But I just wanted to say thank you for that, because we were talking yesterday and I was like, the whole reason we started this podcast was because we generate in ideas and information within our group of friends and colleagues and acquaintances that then become friends, and we owe it to everyone to share that to whoever else might need it. And I think that's why I'm really excited about having my one-on-one time with you, because that's really what we would do. We would just go off on tangents in our brunches and talk about so many things and what we're learning. And so, I wanted to say thank you for giving me that time to go away and to just have my back while I was gone. That's great.
It's so important.
And you'll get yours too, and I'll learn how to edit these things.
I know I see an end in sight. So after the first week of December, then my exams are done. I have a week where I have no classes before I leave for Europe. And so then I'm just going to be literally like hanging out with family. I'm happy to record bombshells, but I will be like, I've already told my work I won't be in. At that point, I'll have finished working there. So it's really just going to be like family and friends time. And then when I get to Holland, I have 2 weeks before classes start. So I'll have some good family time then, because I have family over in Holland as well. So I'm going to spend some time with them. And I think it's going to be
big changes.
Well-deserved at that point.
Yeah. My goodness. Like the two of us launched the podcast and then both just started moving. I'm literally, if I showed you what it looked like out there, you'd be probably shocked, which is why we got a declutter expert on one of our guests. And I think you and I have spoken a lot about how we're both doing. I was not coping very well at the beginning of the podcast launch, getting
that was a
things,
tough time for you.
It was big. And then moving everything, and I own an apartment like with my family in but I was living there on East Broadway, and renting that out was more stressful than I was expecting. And then moving into a new place, and I still have so much to sort out here. It was a lot with acting auditions, and the industry started up again, and I have a whole album to record. It's been a whirlwind for us both.
I totally get that. I am not someone who can live in a house with boxes. Every time I move, and we talked about it in the last podcast or the podcast before, which is one of the episodes we've recorded today. But I am someone who will stay up for like 2 days and just unpack everything. Like I need everything to have its home.
Yeah, I am so much the same. And I really got to a point where I had to just be like, I still can't sleep on my bed. Just have to like go away, go to the spa, and surround myself with good wine and good girls, and get out into nature and have some weird lavender scrub that was amazing.
Was it?
Oh, it was so good. I've never spoiled myself like that. I mean, I have in different ways, but I think we're in the luxurious position, you and I, and we've spoken about this before, where when we first started out in the beginning of Bombshell Brunches, I could never have afforded to do that. I couldn't have afforded to take that time. And now I think with all the things we've learned, and I want to go through a couple of those gems that we've had over the last month, I've really learned how to set aside that time and justify it, because I've been thinking about the word spent. We always say we spend our time. We spend our time on this. We waste our time doing XYZ. And I think about the word spending, and I think I kind of want to change it to investing, because instead of me spending the weekend at a spa, I invested a weekend at the spa. And I really, really think that the first few podcasts reminded me what to invest in. And you and I are both really wordy and nerdy about how we use our words, but I think I'd like to switch it from spending to investing, and the kind of mental shift that goes along with that. So I invested the weekend.
I love that. And for everything, like I invested my time in a workout.
Yes, I saw that post. You did that amazing Instagram post where I was feeling like, I was feeling kind of lazy. And you and I have spoken a lot about mental health, and we've got episodes about mental health that I can't wait for everyone to listen to, or if you've already listened to it, I hope you've enjoyed it. But getting out, whether it's out in nature, movement. Kenny Starr spoke about movement so beautifully, and about being out in nature. We have to invest that time. We have to, in order to be sustainable. And at this point in our careers, I think it's for me, and I know for you, just hands down, I do know for you, we can't consider that time spent anymore. We have to consider it time invested.
And I would say, at least for me, I think for most people, it's probably the same. And we used to say it in yoga all the time. The things that you want to do the least are the things you need to do the most. So
taxes.
When I'm, yeah. When I need to work out, I usually, once I get to that point, I don't want to work out. And I'm someone who loves to work out. That's like how I like to spend my free time. I mean, to me, that's a fun thing. But literally, so if I know that I'm feeling lazy, I know I need to get my butt there, because that means like mentally something has shifted, and I'm not I'm missing something.
Have you noticed that when that happens, it's almost like we've talked about in podcast, the monster, right? That little, I call them a monster in my head, a little cute one, like but I've had to change my relationship with my monster. But it's weird, because I know that I'm starting to get lazy. I know that I'm starting to get lethargic. I know that these things are happening, and it's reducing my impetus to work out. Why is it so counterintuitive? Why is it so that we kind of, if we're feeling overweight or we're feeling unhealthy, we reach for cheesy puffs? I don't know why we do it.
So
But
I mean, there are a couple things surrounding that actually. I'm trying to remember where I was reading this, but so yeah, one side of that is that we are actually convinced by action. So, and that works for inaction as well. So, let's say you make a point, no excuses, to work out every single day. And before that, you said, I hate working out sucks. I don't care what I look like. I don't know. I don't know why you would, but whatever. You have all these reasons why you hate it. I don't like to sweat. I like to sweat, but
I can't help it.
You've got all these reasons. You start working out. Let's just say whatever the cause was, either your own sheer will or someone starts forcing you and you're in the military. Whatever it is, you start working out. The fact that you're taking those actions will actually shift your mindset. So you're going to start believing that you actually enjoy that and you actually like it.
It's in this book.
Is it?
It is in this book, which we were going to get to.
Yes.
At some point, it actually. I'm sure that Mark Manson is not the first person that said it, but it came from the conversation surrounding motivation, and actually action. It talks about, you know, you needing to get motivated to take action. But actually, he was like, look, you know, flip that around and realize that in order to get motivated, you need to take action.
It's true. And it's got a dark side as well. So I think the book that I was reading that in was The 7 Secrets to Persuasion.
Oh.
Which is a fabulous book, by the way.
Oh, I'll add that to my list. I'm almost done this one.
I go back to it all the time. I've never been able to read it straight through, but it's basically a bunch of case studies and it's all research based. So he actually lists out where the research comes from if you want to look that up after, which I did do on some of the case studies as well. But it is really interesting and it can happen the other way as well. So why do you feel more lethargic the more you don't do anything, right? Because you're not doing anything. But it could also be like morally ambiguous. So if you do something and you're like, oh, that's not quite kosher, like you just like cut someone off in a lineup or something, I don't know, or you cut someone off in traffic. By doing those actions, your brain starts saying, okay, that's okay that we did that because it justifies. So it'll actually start creating all of these reasonings that you did that. And so it can really work in like in kind of a darker way too. So you have to be really careful. I always try to think about that. Like sometimes when I have those moments and I'm like, oh, like I can just do this. I'm like, okay, but what boundary is that pushing? And am I willing to push that boundary?
Right. And I actually, you know, Kenny's episode I watched The Social Dilemma. So in prep for Kenny's episode, I watched.
I haven't watched it yet, but I've been told it's great.
You know what? I just think it's necessary. I just think it's necessary information. And I think that we're at the stage now where we're having so many conversations about how to wrap our heads around where we are headed as humanity, what humanity looks like, what connectivity looks like, you know, the kind of, I keep calling it the exponential rise and evolution of digital technologies. I'm sure I'm not the only person that calls it that, but and how that correlates to, and then slap on a pandemic and look at how that correlates to who we are and what opportunities we have to be humans version 2.0. And I'm sure it's you know, that's a huge understatement. It's not humans version 2.0. It's also not linear, and I don't think it should be binary to numbers. You know, we're just at this really fascinating phase of humanity where we're overwhelmed with information and we don't know what's real. We're in a wild, I've said this to you before, I think we're in a wild west of technology where we're getting out and we've got conversations like cancel culture and conversations where, you know, you and I have spoken.
Can we talk about cancel culture for a second here?
Oh, we can, but I don't know. There's so much to unpack. What do you think about it?
I think everyone needs to stop. I'm just going to go out on a limb here, and you can send me messages if you want, but I think everyone needs to stop. Like the whole cancel culture thing, I don't think that it's a good idea in a society to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. And that's something that we're already trying to fight in a systemic way with, you know, issues in police
so
forces
many
and
issues
things like that. So why would you take that on and say, that's so wrong, I'm going to do it too?
Well, and this is an interesting thing because you and I have spoken about it before. And part of me is like, I do agree with it. I do agree that we do have to say enough, you know, get out of my internet, you know, in some ways. However, and you and I have the best conversations about so many things because of our opposing thoughts, but same through lines and
but cancel
underlying
culture is bullying. Cancel culture isn't just saying, oh, I don't agree with you, that's enough, you're being, you know, intolerable. Cancel culture is bringing together a group of people to cyberbully someone. I just can't stand behind that.
Yes, and I know, and I can't stand a bully, but I'm trying very hard. We've got one other podcast that that it will stick with me for a long, long time, which is to stand on the side of the people you don't agree with and try and see it from the other perspective. And I think that, you know, from conversations with a lot of young people, and some, you know, people of all ages, but, you know, a lot of those, the generations that have grown up with social media at the forefront, this is why I'm calling it observationally the Wild West. It's the time where, you know, you walk in and you've realized everyone can have a gun, and you walk in and you go, well, I don't like you, and I don't like you, and you're cancelled, and you're cancelled, and people are finding their feet. I don't necessarily think it's the right way to find feet, but I also think that it's so much more than just, hey, stop doing it, because it's the only way that society has given us to do something. And so there's a part of me that says, okay, well, when there's huge social change, and, you know, the Me Too movement that happened a couple of years ago, you and I both have had this, we've had very interesting conversations surrounding it. We're moving into such a populated world that hive mentality is going to be a thing, and already is.
Well, it's been a thing since the dawn of time. That's how humans are
but created. I read a really wonderfully written article about the unhealthiness of the nuclear family in America, where before it used to be more collective. You know, you'd have 100%. The extended family, you'd have larger gatherings, and then it became the American dream to have 2.5 kids and your own house and your own space. And this article is long but so awesome. And it basically breaks it down and goes, you know what, we were conditioned to aspire to this. And so when I go back to talking about cancel culture, part of me is I want to learn. I actually want to learn more about where that's coming from, and also how I'm being pulled in different opinions in different ways, because I think we're in that Wild West stage, and perhaps we have to get there to get through it. Perhaps we have to, you know, be the bully in the playground in order for someone to be like, hey, stop doing that. Or better yet, for us to grow out of it and go, you know what, that was different parts of my brain working that really don't need to. I was testing boundaries that I really didn't need to. And this is why I think The Social Dilemma is a really fantastic watch to supplement those opinions, because you look at it and you go, right, we are a product of a system that we've been built into and has been built technically around us, but we're building ourselves into this. So we're using what we can to make our statements.
We are, yes, we are. And we definitely have to go through it, because as you say, like the Wild West, which is what I've called the internet for years. That's actually literally verbatim the term that I've used for years. It's like, the internet is the Wild West.
And it is currently.
It is, and it's always changing. But we of course have to do that, because I mean, that's how you create policy wasn't there first.
Yes.
People or laws or whatever, situations happen, we decide we don't like those situations, and then laws or policies are lobbied for, and then eventually over a long period of time those get put into place.
Yeah.
Or if there's something extreme enough that happens in between, then it might happen faster, but usually it's over a long period of time and it's incremental.
But we've got this influx of information and misinformation in social media that's debunking our traditional methods, and I actually think some of that is really good and overdue, and other parts of it I'm like, oh, that's a little bit too much.
Yeah, I think I think all systems, like all systemic systems, are trying to catch up. There's a lot of archaic systems because, you know, they weren't really created for the internet. The internet happened after. Yeah. But I still question why morally we're still raised with the same values and the same morals. I have a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that just because you can't get called out for it because you can hide behind a screen, it's okay to, I don't know, like try to take someone down. Like I
know.
But that's such a hard time.
And that's where I think it is the pendulum. I think we've got to be active 100%. Observers in the pendulum swinging and know when
and I think you don't see the repercussion either. I think that's part of it.
No, that's a good point.
So you don't see that person who just got canceled, you know, sitting on their floor crying. That you don't see that.
You don't see what happens to them. Yeah, fair.
And it just, the thing that sits with me, speaking of another episode, is what Kinney said. I want the opportunity to fail.
Yeah.
Give me the chance, because that's how we learn. So if you're going to cancel me because I said one thing wrong,
I know.
How am I going to learn? I'm just going to shut down. So
I struggle with it a lot, actually, in public life, in songwriting, in having conversations with younger generations and mentorship, where I see people who are really angry, very rightfully. And I don't know how to sympathize. I don't want to be, have you ever thought about this where you're like, I don't want to be the 2 generations before us who seem so much grumpier than us, who seem so much more jaded. I don't want to be the person that says, in my day. I don't want to be the person that looks at the next generation and the generations to come and says, well, you had it easy. Like, you've got it easy because of all the things I did for you. But I can feel it. I feel that pull. I feel the pull for me to be saying, like, you shouldn't be canceling someone.
But I think that's a moral. Yeah. I think that's different. That's different than saying, you know, you're given the world at your feet and you're so lucky. But I think that's like more of a moral and values pull. But I do see what you're saying. And I do agree with that.
It's hard to know what, because I agree with you.
They're just not given the right tools.
I don't think any of us are. I swimming
totally
around in a
agree.
shit show at the moment.
Yes.
We're literally like, I don't know what to do. And that's why I picked up this book so much later than other people, I'm sure. I was like so late to the party. I'm so late to the party. But and I know that a lot of people can poo-poo it and say that it's just an opinion. But so are most things, you know, when it really, really comes down to matters of the heart and internal compasses. But it's really important to kind of recognize that we just don't have any of the answers, and we actually don't have any of the tools, so that maybe we can finally start asking the right questions.
Or exactly. Or searching for the tools, or
but how do you turn around to someone and say, you know, how do you have that awkward conversation? And I think I just want to bring it back, especially for our audience. Like, you know, this is our chance to kind of sit with all of you, and we've taken in a lot of your feedback over the last month, and we've heard what's really resonated with you, and this is our chance to kind of have that really candid chat with just the two of us and you. One of the things that I found over the first few episodes is we really found people that know how to build their safety and know how to respect others' opinions. You know, Shannon is so amazing at saying no. And I say that in the best way, because that conversation about, I just said yes to everything, you know.
Shannon is goals. I was actually writing her post for her episode, and I hope everyone, if you haven't heard it, please go back and listen to her.
Yeah.
She doesn't really post much on social. I was going to say follow her on social, but when I met Shannon, there was a groundedness to her that is just unlike anyone I've really met before. It was just like maybe a handful of people in my life are like her, but she is so grounded and so sure of herself, and she speaks very eloquently and very thoughtfully. At no point do I ever think she says something that she doesn't actually feel. And she's very good at telling you whether she agrees with what you're saying. She can tell you her boundaries. She can do all of that. And I don't want to say the word stern. It's not stern because that makes it sound like a teacher, but
it's like confident.
It's assured. Confident, it's clear, but it's not at all taken rude. Like so many women, when they do that, it comes off as like bitchy or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think that's bullshit, but anyways, it does. Or that's how we're programmed to see it. But she's really found that line, or maybe she's always had it, where she can just do it.
I love her self-assurance. That's how I describe Shannon. She's got this self-assurance. And I think that episode was such a big one for me, because I just know her personally as someone who says, I'm really enjoying this. Let's keep doing this. This is a good idea. This is good for us. And she's not had an easy life, and she's not had an easy upbringing. And a lot of us haven't, and a lot of us have. I think she's very matter of fact in a way that asserts herself, but doesn't impose upon you. And I think that's a rare art. And I think we can all use a little bit more of that in our own self-talk and in our own lives as we progress through our careers. And just moving from Shannon to Michelle, you know, to have someone who started out in a trade, which there is absolutely nothing wrong with, but recognized that it wasn't her path and wanted to move from a trade to something wildly different to that trade. And then just so fabulously transforming her life into what she wanted it to be by using her words, magnetic influence. It's been amazing to kind of look at the audits that she gave us, you know, the kind of check-ins of what am I presenting to the world? How am I articulating?
I literally watched her build that, like out of thin air. She was like, this is what I'm going to do. And she just did it. She just built who she wanted to be. I always said that. I always said we are who we want to be. We make ourselves. We're not necessarily born this way. I mean, obviously we are to a certain degree, but whatever you want to be, you can build yourself into that. And she's the perfect image of that.
Yeah, I loved that what Michelle stood for me was, and there are so many conversations surrounding this. I'm not even going to go into identity and things that I really have no right to speak on, but a lot of interest in listening to. I'm really enjoying that we're at a stage in life where we get to identify what societal factors have been imposed upon us, how we've been raised, how compared to what's really good for us as humans, as our own individual human beings, what's right for us, and why. Because the minute we start getting to be able to ask the why, I think we have a lot more authentic relationships with our best version of ourselves. And that these last 4 episodes for me have been amazing. Well, no, the last, I can't even remember how many are we up to, but
I think it was 7.
The last, we've had, and I'd love to hear from the audience whether or not this kind of chat is useful, because it's essentially how Raquelle and I spend the first hour of our days together. We have brunch and we shoot the shit and talk about all these really, these important topics that are so interwoven, but they're all coming back to us being better people.
Yeah. Yeah. And we really try to dig into things that are going on in the world. And I always know Kristina has a oftentimes, it's not always, but oftentimes you'll have a different opinion than me. And I love debating things. So I love hearing different people's opinions. And Kristina can meet me right there, which is amazing because she knows that I never mean anything by my debates. Some people meet me and they're like, "Oh my God."
But it's interesting that you say it, because the conversation with Tam and the conversation with Kemi, we need to be doing that right now. We need to be seeking out uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that it works for you and I is because we've established a mutual level of respect. So going back to cancel culture, going back to reading, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, we need to start being uncomfortable again. And that's not to say, I'm not saying we as a world, I'm saying you and I, because I am not going to tell other people to be uncomfortable in a world where some people are very, very uncomfortable and fighting very big battles. I'm just saying that you and I, with where we're at, I'm so grateful that we can. I'm so grateful that we can be like, hey, this is tough. I mean, I've been so grateful to have you around while I've been freaking out on levels that I hadn't before, but also performing at higher levels than I ever have. And I think I can say the same for you and with all the things you're undertaking.
You know what I have to say is I've found, at least for me, the men in my life, I've been really lucky to have a few really good men in my life, have been really good teachers of this. I seem to attract kind of the alpha male or I'm attracted to, I should say. Maybe
magnetic influence too. I mean, hey, you're just two magnets.
but one thing that I have to say about men, and especially I want to say like your stereotypical alpha guy, is especially sports driven men. I want to actually specify that.
Okay.
They're very, very good at having tough conversations in a way where it does not feel tough.
But surely not emotional tough conversations.
Emotional tough conversations.
Wow, you have met some very different ones.
But it's amazing. Like, so what I relate it to, and I was watching a bunch of like different sports anyways. And I was so, okay, so here's the difference. Like women, when they work out or when they're doing sports, oftentimes, unless you're really like on a team, like if you're on a soccer team or something, it's a bit different, but they're not going to jump in and help each other. Males will. And there's no shame in that game. And if a guy does really well, all of his friends and teammates are like just as happy as he is that he did well. And on the other side of that, they're just as open to be like, dude, that wasn't cool. I don't like when you do that. And that's not taken as like a threatening thing. It's just taken.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Point blank. Right. So the tough conversation is no longer tough. It kind of neuters the toughness out of it.
I think it also though comes down to like people who are raised as women are, when we've spoken about this, are raised with a different set of criteria. We, in a lot of, and again, this is more of a Western, I guess, mentality. But yeah, it's, I think we've been raised with different parameters. I don't know that I would respond the same way. And again, I'm from Hong Kong. Like I'm pretty direct. If I don't like something, I'm pretty direct about it.
Dutch are really direct.
Sorry?
Yeah. The Dutch are really direct.
And I was reading in that same book about, Russian culture being a lot more direct and saying it as it is, rather than it being laden with an emotion. It's like, hey, you punched me in the face during that workout session. I didn't like that. That hurt my face. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But there's nothing else to it. It's, you know, it's like, don't do that. I didn't like it. Whereas
but here it's a big deal. Here it can be taken as a very, at least that was my experience growing up here. Cause I didn't grow up, I wasn't born outside of Canada. I was born in Canada, but I grew up in a Dutch family where everyone is extremely direct, good or bad. And everyone makes fun of each other. It's just how it is. And as an adult, it's been more accepted, but I would say there's a lot of people who cannot handle it whatsoever. The directness does not work, especially women.
We've got to figure out that in between, right? The in between of understanding that we are still in the society we're in, but figuring out how to progress it. And I think bringing that back to cancel culture, to whatever the hot topic is you want to talk about, and our audience I'm talking to now, whatever you want to talk about, really it does come back to, how do we progress? How do we move from here? Where do we go? Because what got us to here, and I'm quoting a book that I can't remember, and I don't want to misquote it, but what got us here? Oh, it's How Women Rise. And it's one of the two authors said, what got you here won't get you there. And cancel culture will not get us to our best versions of ourselves. It might get us along the way. We might have lessons as a humankind that we need to learn from this, but we got to start asking questions. And I think that's where we've started to go as Bombshells. I think that's where we've started to kind of embrace what that looks like on this podcast, so that we can all just take one more step.
It's a lot of deprogramming, really.
A lot of deprogramming.
And oftentimes you don't know you need deprogramming, or
why would you
know how to.
It's programmed into you. Yeah. How would you know that? So I guess, what we have to say really to everyone is thanks for the first phase of Bombshells. And I hope you've enjoyed the episodes that we brought. We're really grateful for the feedback about them, because it's really helped us to inform the ones that we've subsequently looked for. And keep going, keep engaging, because this is really about us having one big badass brunch.
It's a community. So yeah, chat with us. And we're on Instagram a lot. If I'm not on there, Kristina's on there. She's really good with the stories. I try to post. But I do tend to jump over there whenever I can. So we want to know what you like, what you don't like, what you want more of. If you took any of this and used it for your own life, we want to know. And then we'd love to have that conversation with you as well. So
for sure.
On that note, how is moving going? Getting out of the serious stuff. How's your move?
It's just boxes everywhere.
Just boxes everywhere.
I need a new ring light that sits, because this is like huge.
Oh, mine's little.
And comes this way, because I've got to paint here for a self-tape space. And then this bit will be music recording. And then there's actually a nice little solarium that's this little kind of den office space. And a director from a film that I'm shooting at the moment actually had a desk he had to get rid of. So I got a free desk. So I'm setting that up next, which is great. I can't wait. I loved my space that I was in, but I'm really excited for this next phase. And I knew that it was a big, heavy lift, especially during a pandemic, but
you're leveling up. It's the next level.
It's next phase. And how are you feeling about Amsterdam?
I'm really busy right now, so it's kind of a blessing in disguise. I'm not able to really worry too much about anything, but I'm trying to tackle things as I go, trying to get rid of things as I go. And I don't know, I've just decided that things will work out for me.
There's a book my older sister recommended called The Universe Has Your Back, I think.
Yeah. Literally, this is what I've decided.
You got it. Yeah, you just don't read the book. Just go with it.
I'm just gonna gonna go with it.
Yeah,
I read this thing. It was this like ridiculous thing. I'm not even gonna explain what it was because it's probably totally fake. And we just talked about science, and it's not scientific in the slightest thing. But it was like, things will just work out for you. And I was like, okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, sometimes that's the definition of faith. I think sometimes it's okay to have a little faith.
I have faith, and I'm just going with it. And I know that, you know, I'll probably stumble and fall here and there. And I know that I have it in me to keep it together. So
but you
yeah,
have the
I'm
right
trying to get rid of everything and I don't know, move forward through that. But if anyone needs a car, I'm trying to sell my car. Speaking of things that are on my mind.
Anyone in BC who would like
it's a Mustang. Car? It's really cute. It's a manual.
Of course, you've got a Mustang. I love that. That's a cute car.
Mustang. But anyways, I'm trying to sell that. But life is swimming along real fast. I've got a month and a half before I move, and I'm needing to fit my stuff in a suitcase and a half. So, you know, it's gonna be
pay
interesting.
For the excess baggage. Just pay.
But how much excess baggage can you bring?
Who are you flying with?
Just me.
No. What airline?
Oh. KLM. I'm flying with KLM.
Well, yeah, look up KLM's guidelines. I would call.
Okay.
Every time I've done an international move, I have found a way to use all my points or my dad's points to upgrade me, and so I can arrive in style. And that often will upgrade your allowance. And then I've always added an extra. So I have like everything, like 2 giant suitcases, and both my guitars came with me. And it was a bit cumbersome kind of getting on and off the plane. But other than that, it's worth it. And it's cheaper than shipping often.
Okay. So I'm going to look into that.
Look into that.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
See?
Cool.
Tips with Kristina Lab.
How to leave a country. Legally. Okay, cool. Well, I guess we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Good job.
Ciao for now.
Yeah. Okay, bye, team.
Bye. Chin chin.
Thanks for listening, bombshells. In order to continue to elevate, subscribe and don't forget to click that little bell so you can get notified every time we have a new badass brunch. Until next time, stay focused, fierce, and fabulous.